Shalom and welcome to this week's Living Torah. One more week, and it just seems that things are going so fast right now that it's difficult to even keep up with. Here it is this morning as I'm recording. It's Tuesday, and it was just a week ago that Prime Minister Netanyahu met with President Trump. That seems like an eternity ago. It seems like so much has happened in this short amount of time that, for me to right now make any kind of statement regarding hostages or what's happening in Israel, I feel like by the time this video is released, 48, 72 hours from now, people are watching it, that it's probably going to be irrelevant. But with that being said, this weekend, I saw the statement that President Trump made that either the hostages will be released by this Saturday, this Shabbat, or I'll put it mildly in different terms than he uses, there will be consequences to pay, heavy consequences to pay. I don't know what that is. This whole idea, and I'm going to be talking to Hanok, we're recording today on that, so it will have already been out for a couple days before this is released. But I watched and I listened to Mr. Trump's statements with Prime Minister Netanyahu, and he has now, it seems, doubled down on some of these statements, that we will own Gaza, that we will occupy Gaza, we will rebuild Gaza, and we'll have, other countries like Saudi Arabia maybe that will come in and help all of that. How does that work when you have Saudi Arabia involved in business dealings with Israel? Well, I know that we had the Abrahamic Accords, and that seemed to go well, but there's something that is missing here when you have politicians that do not understand the spiritual war that's going on around us, that are making statements like this. And when Mr. Trump went to the statement of "we will own Gaza," what's he planning on doing? Buying it from Israel? I don't know. But as I look in the Scripture, that is a statement that he made that troubles me deeply. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, and all we're going to be able to do is wait this out, see what happens. As the old cliche, which is kind of seems so shallow right now, time will tell. Yeah, time will tell. And the only thing that we can understand is that the Almighty is working this out for His covenant, that men and women that are involved, whether they be a prime minister, whether they be a Saudi prince, whether they be a king of Jordan or the president of the United States, they are pawns in the midst of what he is orchestrating upon this earth to bring forth his glory. With that, we're going to go to Jethro. I really prefer to call this man by his Hebrew name, considering I grew up with the Beverly Hillbillies. But it's just, if you're from that generation, okay, you've probably had the same thought. You just didn't have a venue in order to say it, but I do. So in Exodus we're going to be in chapter 18. Verse 1 through chapter 20, verse 23 or 26, depending on your translation. And here is Jethro, the father-in-law of Moshe, who is coming back into Moshe's life. And I'm going to skip all the way down to verse 11. And a little bit of the context, of course, you can read this, that Jethro hears about all that has been done in Egypt. And there is no doubt in his mind. I guess maybe there was a doubt for him a couple of years earlier when Moshe made the statement that he's going back to Egypt. He had met this God at the burning bush, and Itro's like, okay, well, if that's what you feel like you're supposed to do, then I give you my blessing. But he then follows this, and in the hearing of what has been done, he comes to the conclusion that the Elohim that spoke to Moshe at the burning bush has to be the only one true Elohim, the one true God upon this earth. And so he goes back to, in hearing this, he goes to seek out Moshe. And he says this in verse 11, "Now I know that Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh is greater than all other gods, because he rescued those who were treated so arrogantly." He was searching. This is a man that was searching. It says that he said greater than all other gods. So it is apparent to me, and I believe that some of the historical writings will back this up, that Jethro was kind of testing out different gods. You ever know anybody that did that? Well, I'm going to go out and study different religions, and they come to some conclusion, maybe erroneous or not, because they're looking into books to find him. I find it better to look out the window and find him. I find it better to see what he is doing upon this earth in order to find him. And so Jethro is this one who is searching. And I believe that there are many people out there that are searching today. And I also am a firm believer that we are being watched. Now, I'm not talking about the government right now, okay? When I say that, conspiracy theorists are like, I know. Did you know that they're... No. Now, I'm talking about people around us. I'm talking about our family, our friends, our acquaintances, people that are part of our own congregations. They're watching us to see if what we're talking about, our children, our youth, they're watching our lives to see if it is apparent that this God, this Elohim that we are speaking about is actually one that is worth following. And they're going to see him in our lives or see his absence in our life as we're speaking about him with our words. Jethro comes into this situation and he begins to speak to Moshe. And he's watching. He sees how Moshe is, as he says, wearing yourself out. He says, what you're doing isn't good. You will certainly wear yourself out, not only yourself, but the people here with you as well. It is too much for you. This is an insight into the life and the person of Moshe. That though he was giving everything he had and more unto these people, he was in the end pretty much going to be worthless to nobody because he was going to be exhausted in the job that he was doing. I guess he didn't know, he couldn't really figure out how to get out of that. Jethro comes in and he gives him advice. He gives him counsel. He gives him correction. And the next words that we read are about Moshe's response to that advice, to that correction. He could have looked at his father-in-law and said, what do you do? You haven't been here for 2 years. You don't know these people. You have no clue what you're doing. You don't know what we've actually been through. And who are you to tell me what to do? Instead, he walked in humility. And because of that, he could listen to somebody who was coming from the outside and was looking in. There are times in our lives, I think it's probably a constant thing, it should be a constant time in our lives, that we are open to advice, we are open to correction, we are open to other people speaking into our lives. Maybe that's a spouse. Maybe that's a child. I've had very small children at times that have spoken incredible things into my life that I knew was from Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. Never disregard a voice. Now, we have to discern those voices, yes. But Moshe, he discerns that this is a voice that he needs to be listening to. And in verse 21, he says he listens to the advice of choose from among you the people competent men who are God-fearing, honest, incorruptible, to be the people, the leaders in charge of thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. Okay, so what's going on here? It is true that Moshe could have continued to do this. But in the end, what would have been the result? There would have been nobody that was trained to take Moshe's place. If, something happened in the end, like him striking a rock for the second time and being disobedient, and that disobedience brought forth judgment, and he does not enter into the promised land. Oh, that could never be. Yeah, it is. We know the rest of the story. And so what is he doing in this of putting men over thousands? He's looking at his top leaders, the ones that he feels have the most competency in this. He then picks out those that are able, he believes, to take the advice, give advice to hundreds, and then 50s, and then the most so-called immature of the leaders, he gives the 10. What is he doing? This is one of the places I get this thing of the rising generation. We should be looking for people that are going to be trained, mentored into doing what we're doing. I've said this many times about being a parent. A parent's job is to work themselves out of a job. For me, as a so-called ministry leader, pastoring a group here in Franklin, I'm constantly looking for those that I can hand over responsibility to, and then help them in developing that responsibility, and therefore having someone or people that can maybe one day take over what I'm doing. Okay? I hear that when I talk to young people or various, and they say, Mike, I heard you say back then, whenever it was. When people start repeating back to you what you're saying, that is making an impact on their lives. Children should be, in a way, a parrot of their mom and dad for a time period until they can own something. All right, so you got a wood stove, you got a hot stove somewhere, and the older child sees their younger sibling walking over to touch that. If the older sibling has been listening and maybe has, gotten burnt through trial and error of not listening, the first thing he or she's going to say to the younger sibling is, Mom said, Dad said, don't touch the stove. What's he doing? What are they doing? They're parroting what Mom and Dad said until such a time that they can now say, you shouldn't do this because I have experienced this now and I'm giving you advice, all right? So this idea that there should be people that are, that are repeating our statements back to us. What that means is that you're getting to a deeper level in their lives. Now, all the way to chapter 19 is a promise fulfilled. When Moshe brings these people to Mount Sinai, it says the 3rd month after the people of Israel had left the land of Egypt, they came to the Sinai desert and came to Mount Sinai. Okay, well, what had Moshe been told back, around the time of the burning bush? I will bring these people back to where you are now. So this is, as I said before, this is Moshe's stomping ground. I just got this picture of him looking at that mountain and thinking, how many times did I look at that mountain? How many times did I sit here on that rock right there and just stare at that mountain? There was something about it that I just could not figure out. And now here I am coming back to this mountain. And this is where the Almighty promised me that I would come to. And then we have in chapter 19, and then specifically chapter 20, the giving of the 10 words. Now, we're told in chapter 19, verse 5, that now if you pay careful attention, I said to a couple of our grandkids the other day, I said, what is the cheapest thing in life to pay for? And they're like, I don't have a clue what you're talking about. I said, pay attention. Pay attention. It doesn't cost anything monetarily of your life to pay attention. A friend of mine has a bumper sticker that he said he saw, and he loves it. It was basically, I think I'm misquoting it, Paul, so I'm sorry. But it was, the essence is, pay attention and do what you're told. Okay? That's great advice for life. Pay attention to what is going on around us. So pay careful attention to what I say. Or the word there is Shema, what I am saying, what you are hearing me say. You know, all of us have been guilty, husbands, wives, children. We're all guilty of this, of hearing but not hearing. Make a statement and you know that you weren't heard. Or later on you thought somebody was listening to you, but you weren't listened to. How's that feel? Doesn't feel real good, does it? Doesn't make you feel real important or real good about yourself in that day when somebody is half-heartedly listening to what you say. Guys, of course, we got that down to an art. I won't go there though. So it is about listen intently, and listen with the attitude that I am going to put into action that which I hear. That is all wrapped around that word Shema. So it is about Shema, and then keep, or the word should be better translated, guard. Guard the commandments. Goes back to the garden. Guard your garden. One of the greatest things that we can teach our youth, our young people, is, and a lesson for us to live out in this, guard your garden. Establish your garden. Most people have never thought about, what is my garden? My garden is my physical being. My garden is my spiritual being. My garden is my family. It is my household. It is my property. Okay, that which the Father has entrusted to me in order for me to maintain, in order for me to take dominion over, in order for me to, what has been given to me to protect, that is what I am told to guard. Anybody that's ever served in the military, you've stood guard, and there were specific parameters upon that guard duty. I had a brother-in-law years ago that had been a guard over missile silos. Now, if you're guarding a missile silo, they're not telling you guard all of them. This is before, a lot of the drones and internet and all these kind of things. Basically told, this missile silo right here, this specific one is your responsibility. If you allow something to happen in this missile silo that was within your control, you are held responsible and will be court-martialed for it. He was not told he was responsible for the one down in the other field. Okay? Figure out what your garden is, the scope of your responsibility, and then at all costs you guard that. So that is our natural being, that is our spiritual being. We could say that's our emotional being, that is our physical makeup, our spiritual makeup. It's our home, it's the property, it's what we have been entrusted to take care of. Now, with that is this setting on the mount. And I just read through there. I'm not going to go into a lot of commentary. But imagine these hundreds of thousands of people that are, as it says in the start of verse of chapter 19, they are camped around the mountain. And the wording here is they are camped in specific order. They didn't just get there and go, hey, throw your tent over here. No, there was an order that was given to them as they are in their tribes, as they're probably in their subsection of a tribe, whatever that is. And so here they are encamped around this in order, and they're all facing, all tents at that time are, I believe, facing the mountain. They have a time period that they're given of preparation, a time period of 2 days, and prepare for the third day. During that time, what are they doing? They're going out and collecting manna, they're getting the water, they're doing, they're going through their typical daily routines, but in the midst of them is this unknown, this mountain. Why have we been brought here? All right, in the evening, they didn't have television. They didn't have computers. So what would they have done? They would have sat out at the front of their tent and stared at the mountain. Eventually, somebody's going to say, I wonder why we're here. What's on this mountain that was so special? Is there an anticipation? Is Moshe developed an anticipation regarding this mountain and some type of an event that is going to be happening on the third day? Well, Moshe, can't you give us a clue? No, I don't really know. But why the third day? Why can't it be the second day? Because that's what he said, okay? Just pay attention and do what you're told. Prepare yourself for this event. On the third day, we see that Yah came down upon that mountain, and he said all of these words. Devar. These are called, at this point, the 10 commandments. Really a misnomer. I mean, are they commands? Yeah. Have they been treated as, like suggestions? Yeah, by a lot of people. All right. And there's a lot of discussion regarding some. But I'm just going to go through them. So these are the 10. I'm going to use this. I think probably the best way to describe would be these are the 10 words that are given. But I'm going to use a little bit of an offshoot of that this year. These are the 10 statements. Okay, and it starts out with, I am Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the abode of slavery. So there's not a commandment there. There's not a suggestion there, is there? So what is the first word, the first statement? It's an introduction, okay? It's no more difficult than that they've walked through this time period of probably about 15 months. And now the one who appeared to Moshe in the burning bush is now, in a way, appearing to all of them and introducing himself. I am Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, your Elohim. I am the one that brought you out of the land of Egypt. Nice to meet you. Let's move on from there. He says, you are to have no other gods before me. You're not to make carved images or representation. And I'll let you just read through each one of these commandments. I'm not going to read through each one totally. But we are to have no other gods or no idols. Every time that I've been to Europe, they've felt like I needed to go to Catholic churches. And that's fine. I appreciate being able to see the history. But I'm looking around and going, wait a minute. Has anybody around here ever read that commandment of not having idols, not having representation of anything in the heaven above, on the earth beneath, on the water below the shoreline? Now, I know that it was funny the other day. I was playing golf with a couple of guys, these guys that don't know Scripture at all, and they're becoming very famous and they don't even know it. But somebody said something about taking a picture, and one of them said, but Mike, I can't remember how the thing came out, and he says, well, do you have a religious objection to taking a picture? I'm like, no, I just can't see that one. And he's, well, I don't know. I didn't know. I guess he had heard of somebody that did. Okay, that's fine. But people have all kinds of different ideas regarding this idols. Some in Judaism don't take pictures. They would not have a picture of themselves. And that's their commitment, okay. Some would not have, any type of a carved image of something, a carved image of a fish or whatever. All right, those are all things that each person has to deal with. But the what's the purpose of it? That we are setting something in front of God Himself. Now, I want to suggest that this goes far beyond a carved image, a little statuette, a little guy with a big tummy, which I would not own one and would not allow one in my garden for the totality of my garden for any reason. I'm not going to have that. But these verses go far beyond that. We need to ask ourselves, what do I have in front of God, in front of our Elohim, our Creator? Well, it has to be, we find that out by asking questions. I'm not being judgmental to anybody, but if you come down with a sickness, what's the first thing that you do? Do you pray about it or call the doctor? Is prayer a last resort or is it a first resort? If we have a problem with finances, is the first thing that we do grab the credit card? Or is the first thing we do pray about it? This could go on and on and on and on. It's something I can make a long list, but we all know what we put in front of God. This past Sunday, there were churches that canceled service. And I'm not getting into the Sunday thing and all this, but, if you have a service time and you're committed to that service time and you've been doing this for forever, and it's like, well, okay, we're not going to have service on this Sunday night because it's the Super Bowl. I was remembering back to many years ago when I was pastoring, and I had to deal with this same thing. And I remember the first Sunday that I had a decision regarding Super Bowl Sunday. We had service on Sunday night. I know some churches don't now, but we had services on Sunday night, and so I kind of took a little bit of a straw poll, and everybody in that church says, why would we want to watch the Super Bowl when we can come here and meet with God? And I was that was probably one of the moments that I was as proud as I could ever be in that group of people. That nothing was going to come between them and God. See, that's what an idol is something that comes between you and Him. I'll move on. Verse 7 is, you're not to take the name of Yud-Heh-Vav Elohim in vain. The word there is emptiness. Okay, you're not to speak it in an empty fashion. That's why I this thing of OMG and just kind of blurting out something. And I've said this so many times during the years. My favorite definition of this word, of this commandment, is this: that when we are talking about Him without thinking about Him, all right, we need to make sure, and that's why I have, there's all these various names for Him or titles of attributes, and I try to, as I'm speaking about Him, I try to put in the attribute. This is kind of my thought process, that maybe you see me once in a while and you're going, oh, I can see a cog got stuck there. Needs a little oil. I know that. But at times I'm trying to think of, okay, what would be out of all the titles that I have for Him, what would be the best appropriate title to speak in this moment regarding my Creator? Okay? Number 4, Shabbat. Remember the day Shabbat. It's set apart for Elohim. So here's a few questions regarding this. What is the only commandment or suggestion or statement or word? What's the only one that we are told to both remember, bring to mind? Okay, it's not that I forgot. Okay, if you're just forgetting about the commandments, then we need to go back and talk about the original basis of them. If you're standing in Walmart at 11 o'clock on a Shabbat and it's like, oh, I forgot, we have another problem that we need to go back and fix a few steps backwards, okay? But it's not about, oh, I forgot it was Shabbat. No, it's about, we need to bring it to mind. Bring it from in the 6 days of the week. Maybe it's in the back of our mind. But the closer we get to Shabbat, the more it should be on the forefront of our mind. That is, you don't just get to, it's 30 minutes till sundown. I forgot to do this. I forgot to do this. No, that's not the way. We are supposed to remember, bring it to the forefront of our mind. And then it also says guard. So what's the only commandment we're told we are to remember and guard? Shabbat. And what's the only commandment that is a sign between us and Him? I'll give you a hint. Exodus chapter 31, verse 17. Shabbat is a sign between us and Him, a sign of the covenant. What commandment, what statement contains more words in Hebrew, or I guess in English too? What statement contains more words than any other of the statements? It's Shabbat. In fact, if you count out the number of words in Hebrew, it is in excess of 30% of the Hebrew words, of the percentage is in excess of 30% of the commandments is given to one single commandment. What is the most repeated commandment throughout Scripture? Do a search. Do a search. And I'm not talking about just in the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible. I'm talking about from Genesis to Maps, Genesis through Revelation. What's the most most stated, repeated commandment. It's Shabbat. Over and over and over again. Shabbat is given to us, is talked about much more than the festivals. Why? Because Shabbat is the essence of the foundation of the festivals. What's the most neglected of the 10 words? Shabbat. What is the most attacked of the 10 words? Shabbat. What is the most rejected of the 10 words? Shabbat. What is the most compromised of the 10 words? You guessed it. Shabbat. So if it is the only commandment that we are told to guard and remember, it is the commandment that is given to us as a sign. It is the commandment that is most spoken of in Scripture, and more is devoted to this commandment than any others. Then why is it that it is the one that is compromised the most? I mean, well, God will just have to understand. But what is Shabbat? I'm actually going to go back, I think, and teach this at some point in time. That Shabbat is a time in our week. It is not about, let me give you a word here. Shabbat is like a reset. All right? It's like so much is going on that I need to reboot. On your computer, occasionally, it is a good thing just to reboot it. On your phone, something's not working right. Well, have you tried rebooting it? Okay. Shabbat is like a reboot. But there is a problem if in that computer, in that phone, whatever we're using, it is not just that we have opened too many apps and have, put too much stuff in there, and the computer's having a hard time figuring it all out, all that chaos. But somewhere along the way, we've allowed a virus to get in there. You reboot the computer, the phone, and you're rebooting the virus. So Shabbat is not a fix-all. If we allow viruses of chaos, viruses of sin, I mean, I think you can get the picture here that I'm talking about. If we allow all of that into our week and then expect that on Shabbat, well, we're just going to punch a button and God's going to fix the whole thing, don't be surprised if, sundown Saturday comes and Sunday morning comes and you're right back to the same chaos. Shabbat maybe should be looked at more as a time in which we reflect, and I think that Genesis actually speaks of this, that we do spend some time reflecting over our week. It's not just a time to lay in bed and rest up because we've overworked ourselves to the point that we can't even function. That's the virus that is going to then go back into our next week. Shabbat is a time in which we reflect over how should I have handled this past week to where I can come into Shabbat and have something to give unto God. Have something to give unto others. Instead of being so absolutely frazzled that it's like, I can't even drag out the door. Now, I know that things happen in life. Life is complicated at times. But that goes back to guarding in the 6 days so that we can then guard on the 7th day. Next verse. Honor your father and mother, so that you may live long in the land which Yehovah your Elohim is giving you. The word there, honor, and I used this last couple weeks ago. I was talking about the four levels of Torah learning. One of them is the remets. And so for someone who is a father and mother, we should look at this verse and say, if we are asking our children to honor us, maybe we should be honorable. Maybe we should be deserving of being honored. Maybe we should change some things because if you look at your children and say, I demand you honor me. No, you can't demand honor. You can earn honor. You cannot demand respect. You can demand fear. You can demand a false, what you may perceive as honor and respect, but in the end will produce rebellion. So this word about honor your mother and father is also to mothers and fathers, be honorable to your children. The word here, honor, is kof beit dalet. Kof beit dalet. You may kind of be trying to pronounce it, or you may be able to pronounce it, or you're thinking about, okay, how do I pronounce that? And you're coming up with something that sounds a lot like kavod. Well, that's because that's the way it's pronounced, is kavod. But what is kavod? In Exodus chapter 40, verse 34, the end result of chapter 19 of Exodus, of pay attention, listen, guard, then you will be my own treasure. The fruit of doing that is found over in Exodus chapter 40. It says, then the cloud covered the tent of meeting, and the glory, the kavod of Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, filled the tabernacle. The word there, kavod, is a kof beit vav dalet. I'm not going to get into the nuances of the words, but the root word for the glory that came down in the tabernacle is the word to honor our mother and father. Now, I'll let you kind of run with that for a while in your own mind during this Shabbat, or whenever you're listening, of how it is honoring our mother and father, our earthly mother and father, that then teaches us to honor our father Abraham and mother Sarah, which is in turn teaching us to honor our Creator in such a way that He desires to dwell in our midst. Okay? Do not murder. Simple statement? Well, not really, because I have talked with people through the years that came out of World War II, came out of the Korean War, Vietnam, who were raised totally and completely with the infallibility of King James. And they're told from Sunday school, from vacation Bible school, you shall not murder, and then are drafted and sent to war and told to kill people. Well, because that's what King Jimmy says, is you shall not kill. The word is not kill. It is translated best, I believe, by David Stern in murder. It is a premeditation. It is a self-defense. That we are not to arbitrarily end someone's life as murdering them. This has nothing to do with war. This has nothing to do with being a soldier or whatever that is. And so any person that was given that guilt because they were told do not kill and then commanded to go do so, that is a condemnation which does not line up with the scriptures. We're not to commit adultery. That's kind of obvious. Well, I say that's obvious, except for, look around society today. You shall not steal. All right? Well, I haven't gone and robbed a bank, but, taking a few pins home that were purchased by the boss. The boss may not mind if you take a pen, but if you take something without permission, that's stealing. All right? That's stealing. And so where is our, I guess the best way to put this would be this, where is our line there regarding theft? Is there, leading into the next commandment, is there like a little white theft? Or is there like white theft and black theft? That, robbing a bank or knocking down somebody on the road and stealing their wallet or whatever. Well, that's the black lie. That's the black stealing. But then there's these other things over here that they're not going to miss that. The bank's not going to miss it if I take the pen. Well, the bank may have bought it so you could take it, but if is that ridiculous? I don't believe so. Because where is our line? Where are we going to put our line regarding these 10 words? These 10 statements. You shall not lie. Okay? It's just a little white lie. It's a lie. All right? It is a lie. And when we figure that out, that I don't believe that Yah has like this kind of tipping thing up there, the weights and balances. And he's like, well, that wasn't, he didn't, it was truth, like, no, it's like either, for him, it's either one way or the other, I think. He doesn't see this grayness that humankind does. Sometimes I kind of pray he would, but in the end, I see him as, well, what he said, hot or cold, not lukewarm, not cold, hot or cold, one of the two. You're either telling the truth or you're telling a lie. End of statement. The last one, covet, jealousy, okay, desiring that which somebody else has. I know people that, I'm around people that they have a lot more than I do. I have a lot more than other people do. I've been the victim of jealousy through the years. I'm in ministry, and there's a group of people, fortunately, not the ones that listen to me probably, but there's a group of people out there that believe that if you're in ministry, you're not supposed to have anything. Well, I mean, I don't agree with that. I do, however, believe that as a person in ministry, that I am held at a higher level of accountability for what I do with finances and time and all of those things. But that's a separate issue. So when we look at somebody else and we're jealous, you know what that does? In the end, the fruit of jealousy is to close off the flow of blessing into our own lives. I saw this years ago. I told a story. I'm not going to go into that now. But I saw somebody had something. I was like, wow, I'm kind of jealous over that. And I heard the Father say, in no uncertain terms, I gave him that to test you and what you would do with that. Are we going to be jealous when Yah blesses somebody? Or are we going to celebrate? Maybe it's in our celebration that we unlock that door to our own blessings. At the end, it says Moshe, they're seeing this cloud, this darkness. Moshe goes into it. Don't be afraid of the dark. When you see Yah doing something, don't be afraid of the dark. We live in a world that's darkness, that we can see it happening all around us. It appears that, the next days, weeks, months, whatever, there's a lot of darkness in front of us. Don't be afraid of stepping into darkness, because it was Moshe that found a different level of light on the other side of the darkness. Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov, have a blessed, prosperous week. Bezrat Hashem, God willing, see you again next week. Until then, of course, be strong.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom.